His friends called him a fraud. The Surrealists expelled him from the movement. Many critics said he hadn't produced serious work since the 1930s. And Dalí? He didn't care at all. Because in his view, genius wasn't measured by what you made, but by what you made people feel. This is the story of perhaps the greatest ego in art history, who hid his most bitter truths and deepest vulnerabilities behind the mask of a character. Welcome, I'm Dark Canvas, and today we're talking about Salvador Dali, the man who imitated his own genius. A child is born. His name is Salvador Dalí, but this name had already been given to an older brother who had died just 9 months before. Same first name, same last name. Salvador Dalí. When he was 5 years old, his family took him to his brother's grave and told him, "You are his reincarnation." Think about that. A 5-year-old child, and they tell you, you are actually someone else. This trauma followed Dalí for the rest of his life. The question, am I myself or am I him, never left him. Years later, he channeled this state of mind into his painting, Portrait of My Dead Brother. But what's even more striking is this. Some psychologists suggest that Dalí's exaggerated ego was actually a shield he developed against the trauma of being the replacement child. Young Salvador grew up between his mother's affection and his father's strict discipline. His father was a legal academic, disciplined, rule-bound, serious. His mother was the exact opposite. She nourished her son's world of imagination, and Salvador built his own world between these two. By age 6, he was already saying, "I want to be a chef when I grow up." At 7, "I want to be Napoleon when I grow up." "My ambitions are growing," he said. And he was right. Dalí enrolled at the Madrid School of Fine Arts in 1922, and he immediately stood out, both for his talent and his personality. On one occasion, he appeared before a jury for his final exam. The exam topic had been set, but Dalí sat down at the table, looked at the jury, and said, "This jury does not have the authority to evaluate me. Their knowledge is insufficient compared to mine." And he got up and left. The result? Expelled from school. But this incident wasn't a source of shame for Dalí. It was practically an advertisement. Everyone was talking about this wild young man. Scandal was his best business card. During his time in Madrid, a person he met in the dormitory where he briefly stayed would change his life. Federico Garcia Lorca. One of Spain's greatest poets. A deep friendship, perhaps more, developed between them. Some historians say the relationship had romantic dimensions, but Dalí never openly acknowledged this. A group of surrealist artists comes to visit the young Dalí. Among them is French poet Paul Eluard, and the woman he has brought with him. That woman's name is Elena Ivanovna Diakonova, but everyone knows her as Gala. Gala is about 10 years older than Dalí. She is still Eluard's wife, and she has a daughter. But that summer, a spark ignited between Dalí and Gala, so powerful that Gala left her husband and daughter behind and stayed with Dalí. This relationship was no ordinary love story. Gala was not just Dalí's lover. She was also his mother, his manager, his shield, and his savior. Without Gala, Dalí couldn't work, couldn't focus. He would fall into panic attacks, mentally falling apart. When Gala arrived, he would calm down and step back in front of the canvas. And Gala used this very well. She organized exhibitions, managed sales, negotiated with galleries. She knew how much to sell Dalí's signature for. It is even said that she made some decisions using tarot cards, but the results were generally impressive. One anecdote is often told. When Dalí sat down at the table to discuss a painting with a gallerist, it was Gala who set the price. Dalí would simply smile and sit there smelling of paint. Who was the seller and who was the artist became unclear. They married in 1934, and again in a religious ceremony in 1958. Dalí began signing his paintings, Gala Salvador Dali. "I paint my pictures mostly with your blood," he told her. Romantic? Yes, but also honest.
A deep fracture within the Surrealism movement. The movement's founder, André Breton, calls Dalí to a meeting and says, "Salvador Dalí, I am expelling you from the Surrealism movement. The charges: harboring sympathy for Hitler, collaborating with the Franco regime, using art for commercial gain." And Breton drives in one final nail. He rearranges the letters of Salvador Dalí to create a new name, Avida Dollars, meaning hungry for dollars. Breton meant it as an insult. Dalí adopted it like a title. "Yes, I love money," he said, "and making money is an art." And he truly made money, in terrifying amounts. By the 1960s, he'd become so famous that he began signing blank sheets of paper and selling them. Starting at $10 per sheet, these pre-signed blank pages eventually rose to $40. His Irish business manager, Peter Moore, later revealed. Throughout his career, Dalí had signed an estimated 350,000 blank sheets of paper, 1,800 signatures per hour. That translated to $72,000 per hour. These papers later fell into the hands of forgers. Paintings, prints, and drawings were created on top of them. Today, tens of thousands of fake Dalí works are still circulating on the market, real or fake, often unknown. So the irony is this: Dalí sold his own signature so many times that he devalued it, and he may have done this deliberately because he was as interested in the story of art as in art itself. Now let's turn to the side that doesn't get talked about. The most serious allegations about Dalí, and unfortunately the majority of them verified, are these: Lorca and the Spanish Civil War. One of Dalí's closest friends, Federico Garcia Lorca, was killed in 1936 by Franco's fascist militias. Dalí was in Spain and received the news. His response? Silence. He never publicly condemned Lorca's death. Not then, not afterward. He carried this with him for the rest of his life. His relationship with Franco. Dalí publicly described Franco as Spain's greatest hero. His left-wing friends never forgave this betrayal. Dalí didn't care about that either. His behavior toward women, according to the extensive research of biographer Ian Gibson and accounts relayed in multiple sources, Dalí physically abused some women as well. Gibson's thesis is explicit. At the core of Dalí's personality lay sexual shame, contempt for his mother, and suppressed rage. The Púbol Castle and Gala's death. In 1968, Dalí bought Gala a castle, Púbol. The terms were these: Dalí could not visit Gala without first obtaining her written permission. His own wife, on his own property. In 1982, Gala died. Dalí was devastated. He didn't know what to do without Gala. He moved into the castle, and in 1984, a mysterious fire there nearly killed him. Some said the fire was not accidental, but it was never proven. After Gala's death, Dalí could no longer paint. A Parkinson-like illness had taken hold of his hands, and his creativity had faded. He spent his final years at the Theater Museum in Figueres. This museum, which he had built for himself, seemed to be swallowing him whole. At the end of 1988, he suffered heart failure. While in the hospital, Spain's King Juan Carlos came to visit him. "I have always been a great admirer of yours," said the king. Dalí made one final drawing, its name, the head of Europa. And on the morning of January 23, 1989, at the age of 84, he passed away quietly In accordance with his wishes, he was buried beneath his own theater museum in Figueres. Today, thousands of visitors walk through that museum every day, and beneath their feet lies art's greatest performer, its greatest fraudster, or its greatest genius. Each visitor decides for themselves. So, was Dalí truly a man who imitated his own genius? Perhaps. But we must also see this. He created Surrealism's most iconic paintings. He changed cinema history alongside Luis Buñuel. He collaborated with Alfred Hitchcock. He entered the world of fashion. He built his own museum. And above all, no artist in the 20th century made people question the very concept of being an artist the way he did. Was he fake? Was he real? Maybe both. Maybe neither. Dalí once said, "Every morning when I wake up, I experience an exquisite joy, the joy of being Salvador Dalí." Being able to say that sentence convincingly is perhaps an art form in itself. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe and turn on notifications, because every week we look at the dark and light sides of an artist's life. Next video, coming soon. But I can tell you, they're at least as wild as Dalí. See you then.